This episode is good for the soul. It is so good for the soul. In fact, you're going to want to listen to it multiple times. I am calling that right off the bat. When we talk about the science of self-made success, we're not just talking about sales and marketing. We're not talking just about data analytics. We're also talking about things that are difficult to quantify. The you, the human being behind the business, the one whose heart and soul makes all of the magic happen. And in today's episode, we are sitting down with one of my favorite poets, authors, and actors to dig into that conversation. Arielle Estoria was born and raised in foggy Northern California and now calls Los Angeles home. She's a multi-passionate, multi-talented creative who is a poet. She's an author, an advocate, and an actor. She has worked with companies such as Google, TEDx, Dressember, Lululemon, Skims by Kim Kardashian, and many more. Arielle has also been making strides in the commercial and television worlds. She has been seen in commercials for brands like Etsy, Starbucks, PayPal, TJ Maxx. You've probably seen her on your television screen. She's kind of a big deal. And her brand new book, The Unfolding, An Invitation to Come Home to Yourself, just hit shelves. This conversation, it is fantastic. At the very end of the interview, she also gives us the opportunity to hear one of the poems from her new book, and it is chosen with intention specifically for all of you. So I have no doubt one of y'all needs to hear this today. Make sure you don't miss the end of the episode. The Independent Business Podcast is powered by HoneyBook, the all-in-one platform for anyone with clients. Book clients, manage projects, and get paid faster with HoneyBook. Use the code PODCAST to get 20% off your first year as a brand new member and let business flow your way. Thank you so much for joining me, Arielle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. I've been following your journey for years and years and years, and I know I tell this story a lot, but you came out and spoke to our Rising Tide leaders when we were in Minneapolis. And when I tell you, to all the listeners, if you are not familiar, let me tell you, you are in for a treat today because I witnessed as we went from laughing to full body chills to people weeping in the audience, full on weeping in the audience. You have such a gift and such a talent. And I am so excited to be having you on the podcast to talk about all things business and the book that you're bringing into the world and you've just brought into the world. So with your new book Unfolding, I need to know, how was it for you writing about seasons in your life that may have been painful, uncomfortable, but also beautiful in so many ways?
Yeah, that process was grueling. It's like an extraction. When we think of the concept of an extraction in something, you're pulling things out of yourself. You're in it, and I've cried. I cried a lot during this process, and in my first draft, actually, my editor, she was like, she finished it, she read it, and she just so happened to be in LA that week, and she was like, let's meet, so we met and we're chatting and hanging out, and of course she was like, I can tell that you're holding back. Like, I can tell that you're not letting yourself fully go there. And I wasn't. She completely read me because I wasn't. And I was purposely, I have the ability to be vulnerable, to be open, and still keep this level of surface. So keep this level where I'm not fully going to the depth, but I've done it. I've done this so well. I've perfected this so well that you might think I'm going really deep, like you might think I'm being really honest. And I'm always being honest, but I may still be protecting myself and I may still be protecting other people. And I think for me, it was like, I never wanted to write this really juicy, tell all, like, I don't want to bring people down. I think we as humans are doing the best we can with what we have, but how can I share my story honestly and the parts that hurt and the parts that I needed to experience and to face, while also honoring other people and while also honoring my story. And so it was hard, and I had to let myself get there. In every draft, it was just chiseling a little deeper and a little deeper, but that didn't mean there wasn't tears, and that didn't mean there wasn't wine along with the process.
The process is hard, period. But when you're writing the kind of book that you're writing, I can only imagine you're 10xing that experience and kind of the weight on the other side. And any piece of great art takes a little bit of our soul with it. Like it just kind of requires us to go there and to lean in. And I'm curious
Yeah.
for you personally, what has your own journey of unfolding and coming home to yourself truly look like?
Yeah, I think it's so fun thinking about this question because it looks so different in the season of writing the book. It's been like three-ish years now of the whole process, so it looks very different. And while writing it, I was learning how to come home to myself. I was learning how to go through those phases of awakening to these new parts of myself and awakening to these parts of myself that had changed and evolved, while also finding space to grieve those aspects of myself, which is what the eclipsing journey is like. That's what that chapter is, that grief of change. We don't talk about the
Right.
grief of change. We talk about the grief of loss, but it's the same thing, losing parts of us, losing who we were or what we did believe. There's a grief that comes with that for ourselves and for other people who are familiar with us being that way, and then there's an illuminating, a bringing light to, okay, this is who I am today. This is who sits before you. And this is the light of what I've left, and this is what I've kept to at bay. Maybe this is what I've been afraid of. And then we mend, we bring in what makes sense and we heal, and those broken pieces are still there, we still see them, but we're allowing space and room for us to figure out what it means to connect those two and to leave the rest. And then we return back to ourselves and this fullness, and trusting our gut and trusting our voices and trusting that our presence and what we're bringing to the table matters in this world. And so that's what the book was. It was just me trying to realize those things. Now I'm in a season of practicing those. Now that I've gotten this under my belt, now I can show up a little bit more bold, a little bit more oomph in my spine, if you will. And so now coming home to myself just looks like I told my therapist this week, I just was like, I feel very sure of the ground I stand on now. And that what didn't look like this 3 years ago. 3 years ago, it was very rocky and it was very shaky, but now there's this groundedness and this awareness of who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm creating. And that feels really beautiful. It's a really fun space to be in, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to be back in the figuring it out all over again, because everything is cyclical. It's not linear, and it happens all at once and at different times. And so right now I'm in that space of feeling grounded and really honing in on that, and being confident in that. Yeah.
Talk to me and the business owners who have ever asked themselves the question, do I matter? Does the work I do really matter? Because something I
Yeah.
heard as you went through that process is you arrived at the end and you kind of said, like, not only did I feel grounded, but there was a sense of understanding the magnitude of the impact and the fact that the world really needs what you've got. The world needs what you have to offer, and you've shown
Sure.
up and done that. And I say this because I know the past few years have just been so challenging for this community, and everyone comes into it with different lived experiences and different challenges that
Yeah.
they're walking through these, auditory or visual doors with, whether you're
Right.
watching or listening to the podcast. But
Right.
nonetheless, I know a lot of people have felt really discouraged and need to return kind of back to themselves, need to feel this sense of
Yeah.
groundedness. So to that person, like, what encouragement would you give?
Yeah. Well, know that disencouragement means that you're really passionate, and what you're doing matters a lot to you. So let that be just like a reminder, of like, I care so much about this, and having that be a fuel. Then, like, I think about when Amanda Gorman first came into the picture, and I lost it. I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go get another job. There's no more space for me in this world. She's taken it all. And all right, great. What am I gonna do? Like, I literally had a downward spiral. And my
Uh-huh.
sweet spouse, my sweet, sweet spouse, my sweet partner, he was like, there's room for both of you. There's room for Amanda Gorman, and there's room
Yes.
for Arielle Estoria. And I
Yeah.
really really needed to hear that. And I think I just give that back to you. There is room for whoever it is that you're comparing yourself, whoever you're thinking is taking up all the space. They are not. There is room for what you have. There is room for what you're bringing to the table. And I think about a lot of it. I had attended an event, and each person, we were speaking on different topics and things like that. And we realized in the audience, someone spoke over all of the speakers. They were like, each of you was going to speak to a different person in the room. You yourself are not going to be for everyone. That's not realistic. Everyone has different palettes and different things they need to hear in different spaces that they're sitting in. So it's not really realistic for you to speak to every single person in the room, but you will speak to a select few who are specifically there to encounter you. And when you think about that monument and that power, we lose what social media often gives us as the reach, and the numbers of thing. And you really kind of like hone in, like there might be 3, 4, 5 in this room of 100, and I'm going to speak to those 3, 4, 5 people. And so knowing that it's not for naught, like what you're doing is for someone somewhere at some point in time, and that needs to be our direction and our fuel. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. That would be exhausting to be for everyone and to hold that kind of load. So know that there's a group of people that your work, that your that your knowledge, that your expertise is for, and let it be for them, and they will receive just the most beauty from that, and I think that's what's important. Not the numbers, not the reach, just the few. If we could come back to the few, I think there's a ripple there.
I agree. I've always said, especially in the community building work that I've done, if you can impact one person's life, that is so much more than enough. Like one person being impacted by your work, your creativity, that's a legacy. That's a legacy to be proud of. We get caught up in those big numbers, but you are right. It's getting back to understanding the value of each human being in that room or in that space or in your business that you can serve. So much value there. Did you always know you were going to go into this sort of work, this creative work, was there ever a world where young Arielle imagined like working at a desk at a company or like climbing a corporate ladder?
Yeah.
Tell me about
definitely not a corporate ladder.
Okay.
That was definitely not ever in my bones. I did used to say I was going to be a teacher, so a little corporate-ish. That was kind of my first heart and intention. And then as I got into college, actually, my initial heart was to do art therapy for gifted children. So children on the spectrum, children on any type of level of learning enhancements and needs and things like that. So that's kind of where I started with being a little bit being a little bit artistic, but then also being very organized and functional. I'm a left and a right brain creative, and I'm the oldest child. So I have a lot of practical bones in my body. And so at first it was like, how do I connect this artistic, theatrical aspect of who I am? I'm not going to be an actor, I'm not going to be on stage. Those were things I was genuinely telling myself. And so I was like, how can I just incorporate the two worlds? And so my major is actually, I'm a psychology major. That's what I went to school for, with an emphasis in theater, thinking that I would do art therapy. And then obviously the stage and more aspects of performing kept popping up in my life, and I just was like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, I'm not going to be on stage, so I don't understand why all these stage opportunities keep showing up. But I had always been a very flamboyant dramaturg of an individual as a kid even, but as you get older, you start to shut out a lot of those dreams within yourself. And so there was a season of life where I wanted to do the practical thing. And then I slowly learned and realized, I'm not made for the practical thing. So let's just throw that out and move forward from there,
Yes. Well, I feel as though a lot of us can relate to the fact that we've wavered between these big, big dreams.
Yeah.
Growing up has a tendency to kind of make those dreams that once felt so possible now impossible. Yeah. And then experiencing that wavering between, do I stick to the practical? Do I chase after my passion? So I'm curious, in your journey, for those especially, because you really do talk a lot about the discomforts that you've experienced. You talk a lot about the challenges that you faced. For somebody who is feeling like they're at a stage where they're wavering. I mean, again, I just had a conversation with someone about the economy, for instance, and like there's so much conversation going on in the independent business world around, is this a bad time to be an independent business? Is this, there's so much fear, so much uncertainty. What inspires you to keep going? Like when something doesn't pan out, when you first think maybe I'll be an actor, and then you're like, I don't know, maybe I'm not going to do it in that way. Or because again, it's like you have invented and reinvented and allowed yourself to explore the dynamic nature of your creativity, from spoken word poetry to modeling to acting now. I mean, you're a big deal. Okay. I saw you modeling with Ashley Graham in lingerie. So we can just you've done a lot. And you've run multiple businesses in that respect and kind of been this entrepreneurial creative. What keeps you going? Like when things don't go your way, when you hit those uncomfortable moments, that friction, that frustration, that no, getting told no.
Well, I think that's been so much the foundation of being an artist. Like everything is connected to rejection at some point. So I just had to create a backbone with that. I had to create a backbone with that. And I also had to trust that the spaces that would be open to what I offer, the opportunities and the doors that would be open were doors that were just so very distinctly made for me and for what I was doing. So because there was that continuous, the doors are opening and the doors are closing, that lean into both, I'm like, okay, this is just part of it then. Not making it in the way that I thought I was going to make it, or that opportunity not unfolding in the way I thought it was going to unfold. That's just part of all this, when you think of what you're making, like if this whole thing is a cake, I know I need some yolk, and I know I need, some flour, and I know, so I think these are all just the ingredients that make up the cake. Rejection is one of those ingredients. Doors closing is one of those ingredients. We're going in a different direction is one of those ingredients. Agencies not responding back to me is one of those ingredients. And that's just, I've learned now, I've created a backbone and not so much of a sensitivity of why don't they love me? Why don't they see me? In a sense of like, that wasn't for me. And I really, really have learned to trust that now. And also on the opposite end, really trust that the doors that open are going to be some really great doors, and going to be doors that are very specifically for me and for the direction in which I'm going in my career and in my life. Even down to the book, even I think I had gotten a lot of conversations in like 2018, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to write a book. And I met my now editor, literary agent at the time. I met her in the season of trying to figure out how to either say no to these people or how to just move forward with a book and ideas that I didn't genuinely have. And she was the first person to tell me, you don't have to write a book right now. You can tell these people no. And I was like, what do you mean I can't tell these publishers no? I'm never going to get this opportunity again. And it's that deficit mindset that we tend to find ourselves in, of like, there may never be another this. And there won't, but there will be at the same time. And I know that's so contradicting to hear. There won't be in that way, but there will be in a way that's so specific for you. And so I just had to trust that. And a year later, I was ready. I did have a proposal, and I had people on my side and in my corner to where I wouldn't get myself in a situation that would have been really not lucrative for my career and where I was going.
The only way to get to a great thing often requires us to say no to a good thing. And I had such a similar experience. I had, even in my own writing journey, I'd always wanted to write a book. It was a dream, had always been a dream. And I had an offer extended to me shortly after my brain surgery by a publisher that had just been following along with my own journey. And it was an amazing publisher, amazing book offer. Yeah. But in my bones, I was like, I don't think this is the book I'm supposed to write. Like, this book is great that they want me to write, but it's not what I'm
Right.
supposed to write. And so again, similar
Yeah.
journey, I said no. I went and crafted a new
Interesting.
proposal and trusted
Mm-hmm.
that by saying no to this really beautiful, great thing, because it wasn't the
Yeah.
right time and the right content, it
Yeah.
allowed for so much more of the journey to unfold in the books that I've written now. And so it takes a lot of guts to
Yeah.
do something like that. And business owners experience it all the time, even down to the
Yeah.
minutia of everyday client opportunities that inbound into the inbox, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
get something that comes in and you're like, I feel like I have to take this. I feel like I have to say yes to this. I see
Yes.
you're nodding
Yes.
so much. You feel
Yes.
like you have to say yes to this because
Yeah.
we start to move into that scarcity, like you said, that deficit
Right.
mindset of,
Yeah, that scarcity mindset.
if
Mm-hmm.
I say no, it doesn't come my way. What are some of the
Yeah.
ways that you've built up the confidence to be able to embrace that word no, embrace the fact that
Right.
letting go of what isn't meant for you has allowed you to move forward into these spaces where you've thrived, you've completely thrived.
Yeah.
What has helped you to
Yeah.
build that confidence?
I mean, I definitely, in the beginning of it all, I said yes to a lot. And I think that helped me learn what to say no to, because I said yes to everything. And I do think there can be a season for that, especially with artists and creatives and trying to network and get yourself out there. Sometimes you just got to cast a very wide net. So my season of yes was me casting a very wide net.
Yes.
And then from that wide net, I was able to hone in a little bit more. And I'm like, yeah, I said yes to that one opportunity that honestly didn't pay well, but I gave my all to it. And that felt icky after. So I'm going to do less of that, Or I went to this event and I just morally couldn't agree with what was happening. And so I need to do less of that. And so it just was a matter of like, the widest net I cast, I was able to hone in from that and learn like, I don't want that again. And I think having advocates and having people, getting a literary agent, having an editor, having social media management, having these people who could kind of be a third wall, between me and funnel things a little bit, because I do just take everything as is. I am a very trusting to a fault kind of person. Luckily I have a partner now who is like, smells funky, I don't trust it. And I'm like, what do you mean? It smells fine, and
Uh-huh.
so I have a lot of people in my corner now who I can kind of have that funnel with and that filter through. And also I think if it's like, if it's, what is the quote? It's like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Like if you're not absolutely pumped and excited about it, that's your body, that's your spirit, that's your brain telling you you don't want this and you don't genuinely want to do this. And it's not to be that language of like, well, I don't want to do it. It's not laziness. It's knowing that like you have to have the desire and the fuel and the passion. Otherwise, it's not going to be your best work. So what's the point? You're going to result in things that aren't actually representative of the quality and quantity of work you're able to actually bring to the table, because you're not in it. So you're just going to produce something. And that is sometimes necessary,
Right.
especially now in our season where we're trying to figure out, like, are we in a recession? Are we not? How are companies doing? How are they not? We're in a very sticky space. So there are things I'm doing and saying yes to because I need to generate some bills and income. And I know that about myself and where I'm at. But also, I know there does need to be a level of passion and excitement about what I'm doing. Otherwise, the work is not going to show the quality and the quantity in which I know I can bring to the table.
I love the balance in that. And I think it reminds me a little bit of how when you finally realize as a creative that the more you can focus on those things that do light you up, those things that do kind of set your soul on fire, and then remove the rest from your plate, get it off. I mean, literally, I
Yes.
work at HoneyBook. That's like at HoneyBook, that's
Yeah.
literally we're one of many
Yeah.
amazing companies that tries to do that for business owners.
Right.
It
Right.
fuels that fire. And so you're right. There's that passion that
Mm-hmm.
has to be ignited for you to do your best work and to serve your clients well, or to
Yeah.
create from such a healthy place. I am
Yeah.
curious though, in writing this book and going through your own process of unfolding, why do you think so many of us are afraid of letting go and afraid of the
Mm.
discomfort that's required in order for us to become the best person that we can be, or the person that we've always been meant to be? Why are we
Yeah.
so afraid to go there with
Yeah.
ourselves?
Yeah. See, I mean, it's safety. It's safety. It's the fear of being rejected. It's the fear of belonging, which
Right.
is the one of, is the greatest fear. We deeply, deeply desire to belong. And if there's any level of risk that could not happen,
You got it.
our fight and flight is going to kick into the T, and we are not going to take it, and so I think, but there's a level of that, but then there's also just like, I think of like, it's cold here in LA, and weirdly cold here in LA. And it's that morning where you're like, okay, the alarm has gone off, but my covers are very, very warm. And I could just lay here and not be productive today. And some days that's necessary. But then there are also some days to just rip the covers off, let the cold air meet you, get in the shower, get your day started. And I think of that level of warmth and safety and familiar. I'm like, it's super cozy, but I know later in the day for me, if I don't wake up because I did some movement this morning, I'm going to be completely off, so I have to take that risk. I got to get up, I got to start my day, and I have to move forward. And so I think it's knowing that what we're putting in, your risk is part of the investment. And I don't think we know that, all the time. It's like risk, again, is a part of the ingredient. We need it in order to make this full, rich, really yummy thing that we're trying to create. We need it. And it's terrifying. Yes, no one's telling you it's not terrifying, it is absolutely terrifying. And you're capable of doing it, and you're capable of stepping into it, and so know that it is scary, and also let that fuel you.
So that was what we call a mic drop. Yes, 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 and
Yeah.
yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yes, yes, yes. I want to kind of round us out here with one big final question that I
Yeah.
do ask at the end of every podcast episode. And
Love it.
after we do that, by the way, I would love, if you're up for it, to read a little excerpt from your book. Are you
Oh my
willing to read a
gosh.
little something for us?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes.
So let me ask my question. Then I just want to allow our listeners to experience a little bit of what they're going to have to look forward to when they get their hands on your new book.
Beautiful.
The question is, and you can answer this however you want, as a
Okay.
creator, as a business owner, however you want to tackle it. Ariel, what do you think is the biggest differentiator between the businesses that succeed and the ones that fail?
I think there's a few layers to this. I think the difference is, the ones that succeed have the people in it too. I think the businesses that take the people out of it, that number them, that specify them in a way that takes out the humanity, is where the failing comes in that regard. I also think that it takes out the humans running it. Like, I love hearing conversations about these big companies and these big spaces that actually do work with the people working and running the organization. You're allowing them to take rest days. You're giving them yoga and massages on site. You're nourishing them throughout the day, and not just like stuffing them with like coffee and just keep producing. You're reminding the people that they're people. And that they're humans and not machines. And that's what's creating these businesses and these organizations that are sustaining, because the people are sustained and nourished. And I think that's important. I also think that it looks at the zeitgeist of what's happening in the world. When we are just like, well, this is how we do it and this is how we've always done it, you are missing a huge opportunity to connect, to engage, and to reach. And I think not knowing and not understanding what's happening in the world around us is a reason why organizations, businesses don't reach up to that part, because they're not willing to expand and to take risk. I do think, again, there's also a level of taking risk. Don't be completely foolish with it. I think there's practical aspects to taking risk. But when we don't take the risk, again, this is always how we've done it. We're not doing, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But just because it's not broke doesn't mean it doesn't need to be enhanced, you know? And so, yeah, I think also, yeah, they're willing to change and they're willing to grow. I think that has to do with people too, but also building businesses as well. You're willing to change and you're willing to grow in a way that it enhances and speaks to who you're trying. Who is your demographic? Who is it that you're trying to reach? And are you gearing yourselves and functioning yourselves around who you're trying to reach? If you're not, then maybe that would be something to assess. So I think, yeah, those are the things that come to mind, and that you're really into include. I think if your business looks one way, it's probably not going to be to its fullest potential because there's not a whole and roundedness to the people holding it. And I think that goes a lot into the diversity versus inclusion conversation. People should already be at the table, and there should not be one type of person at the table, at every table. There should be an array of thought and experiences and backgrounds in order to have a full and rounded business, I think. Yeah. Yeah, those are my 2 cents.
I have loved this conversation. I wish we could keep going for days. I really do.
All day.
I really
All
do.
day.
But I want to carve out a little time. Could you read to us? Could you share a little bit of your book with
Yeah.
all of us?
Yes. I'm trying to think. One of my favorite spaces to read is I'll read this one because I think we're talking a lot about risk and putting ourselves out there. And so this poem you can find in the returning section or the returning chapter. I don't know what really phase. It could be called any of those things, but this poem is called Out of Hiding. A friend came over one evening for dinner. I lit a candle. I vacuumed the carpet, fluffed the pillows, mopped the kitchen, the usual tidying. But I did not feel the need to hide. Unwanted pieces in the closets, mostly because they were already too full to begin with. I did not tuck the dirty laundry into an unseen place. Instead, the pile sat where the pile has sat. The corner clutter of my office stayed just as such. And what permission that is. To not have to hide the unwanted pieces of who we are, to not tuck away under the bed the parts of us we find dirty, to let the clutter be clutter, and know that we are still wholeheartedly and fully able to be embraced, loved, seen. Come out of hiding, love. Pull from under the bed the pieces of you hiding and come as you are. Come as all that you are.
Why am I crying?
Yeah.
Ugh. I hope that one reached through whatever speakers you are hearing this through or whatever you are reading this on or watching this on and touched your soul. Arielle, thank you so much for pouring into this community and for sharing with all of us. We absolutely adore you. Where can our listeners learn more about the book? Where can they find it? Where is it for sale? Where can they follow along with your journey? Tell us all the things.
All the things. So all things connected to me, you can search through my name, Arielle with the double L-E, Estoria. That's .com, that's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's TikTok with an extra A at the end of Estoria because I can't figure out my login for my other account. So we're living there. And you can find the book and the audiobook wherever audiobooks, ebooks, and physical books are sold. I have some links on my website where you can find those. If you would like to shop Black owned, you can find the book through Reparations Club as well. And then your local bookstore, please go into your local store and see if they have it available there. And if not, maybe call them and be like, you should have this book available there. So yeah, the ebook I think is really fun. Obviously, I think I have a way of saying things as well as writing things. So the ebook is a great, the audiobook is is a great way to just hear me in the car as you're driving and going about your day. And then the physical book is just really pretty. So it might be something that you just want to have around. So
I think I want one of each. So I will be buying one of each.
Amazing.
Because I just can't get enough. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you and just have loved our conversation. That ends our episode of the Independent Business Podcast. Everything that we've discussed today can be found at podcast.honeybook.com. Head to our website for access to show notes, relevant links, and all of the resources that you need to level up. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss our future content. Drop us a review and leave our guests some love on social. Thanks again for listening.